Good evening, and welcome to Loveworld USA News. I'm Joel Richard, and first a quick look at the top stories this evening. Night of Bliss set to light up 10 locations in one unforgettable Friday. Judge rules Trump's D.C. National Guard deployment unconstitutional. Orders drawdown after appeal window. Trump administration warns Pennsylvania of $75 million funding cuts over terrorist suspect trucker CDL. Federal grand jury examines handling of DOJ's criminal investigation into Senator Adam Schiff. COVID vaccine studies prompt new questions about possible health risks. And now to the news. The Loveworld Nation is gearing up for a historic move of the Spirit this Friday as our man of God, Pastor Chris Oyakilome, holds a Night of Bliss in 10 locations simultaneously. Now, the one-night event will feature extended worship, preaching, and prayer in each host city, with Loveworld's global TV and online platforms carrying live coverage and updates from the various venues throughout the night. Previous editions of Night of Bliss have drawn large crowds and produced testimonies for physical healing, restoration in families, and spiritual renewal. This Friday's edition is positioned as a strategic moment of impact, with billions of participants following online and via Loveworld television channels. Now, with Friday's meeting billed as one night, 10 locations, Loveworld Networks plans wall-to-wall coverage leading up to and during the crusade. Watch this.
Give the Lord a shout!
22 years ago, this man had stroke.
Take the other one up. Bend down. Up. It's all done.
He has never used his left eye to see.
From when you were born, from a child. How many fingers do I have up? How many? How many?
Multiple myeloma for 8 years. Can't stand and can't walk. She came on that wheelchair.
Come here.
Now she's walking by herself.
It's a night of nights, a night of the supernatural, one night that will change your life forever. Christ Embassy invites you to a night of bliss with Pastor Chris, holding on Friday, November 21st, 2025.
We're going to be in one stadium, and we will be just as much present in at least 9 other stadia, but this is going to be huge.
The presence of God's Spirit will fill the atmosphere, the Word of God will be proclaimed with power, and everyone who takes part will experience the transforming power of God.
Lagos, Eket, Calabar, Kano, Port Harcourt, Bayelsa, Benin, Benue, Taraba, Kogi, and it's going to be a very special blessing. This particular one is only for Nigeria. It's going to be a very, very special occasion, like none other.
It's a 10-in-1 conference taking place simultaneously in cities and states all across Nigeria. You can't afford to miss it. For details about participation in your state, kindly use the details on your screen. God bless you.
Over in the United States, a federal judge today ordered the Trump administration to end its months-long deployment of National Guard troops in Washington, D.C., ruling that the operation violates constitutional limits and improperly overrides the district's local authority. U.S. District Judge Jay Cobb concluded that President Donald Trump's decision to send Guard units to patrol the Capitol as part of a crime emergency exceeded his lawful powers. Her order is stayed for 21 days to give the administration time to appeal before any withdrawal must begin. Now, the lawsuit was brought by District of Columbia Attorney General Brian Schwalb, who argued that the White House cannot deploy Guard forces in the city without the mayor's consent. The challenge followed President Trump's August executive order declaring a crime emergency in Washington, after which more than 2,300 Guard members from 8 states and a district, along with hundreds of federal agents, were sent to assist local law enforcement. Now, lawyers of Schwalb have said the troops are expected to remain in place at least into next summer if the policy is not blocked. In her ruling, Cobb said the president may only call up the Guard through specific powers recognized in law, not for whatever reason he seems fit, and found that the current deployment intrudes on D.C.'s control over day-to-day policing. Now, Justice Department attorneys defended the operation as fully authorized by Congress, calling the lawsuit a political stunt that risks undermining what they described as a successful effort to curb violent crime. They argued there is no sensible reason to unwind the current arrangement while the legal fight continues. The D.C. deployment is one of several Trump-era Guard missions facing court challenges in cities including Portland, Chicago, and Los Angeles. In Washington, Guard troops have been deputized as special U.S. Marshal Service deputies, a move Schwab's office says effectively turns out-of-state Guard units into a federal military police force in the nation's capital. District officials contend the presence of those forces heightens tensions and erodes the city's sovereign authority over local law enforcement, while the administration frames the operation as a necessary tool to restore order and public safety. Let's take a look.
Trump's takeover of D.C. violates the Constitution and illegally intrudes on local officials' law enforcement authority. The judge adding the president only has the power to call up the Guard, quote, through the exercise of a specific power outlined in state law, not for, quote, whatever reason. But the same judge did put her order on hold for 21 days to allow for an appeal. The D.C. Attorney General's office has previously said troops are likely to remain in D.C. through at least next summer.
In other news, the Trump administration is threatening to withhold $75 million in federal funds from Pennsylvania unless the state halts and reviews its commercial driver's license practices following the arrest of an Uzbek terror suspect driving with a Pennsylvania CDL. Federal officials say Akhor Bozorov, who was arrested in Kansas, is accused of having ties to a terrorist organization, obtained a non-domiciled commercial license from Penn DOT despite being in the country illegally. Governor Josh Shapiro has argued that Bozorov's information remained in a federal database from the prior administration, while the Department of Homeland Security has said inclusion in that database does not, by itself, confirm lawful status. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said a Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration review found that Pennsylvania violated safety rules by issuing non-domicile CDLs without properly verifying legal presence and also by allowing license expiration dates to extend beyond recipient authorized stays. In a letter to Shapiro and Penn DOT Secretary Michael Carroll, the department ordered the state to immediately pause all new, renewed, transferred, or upgraded non-domiciled CDLs and commercial learners permits, conduct a comprehensive audit of previously issued licenses, and rescind any that do not comply with federal requirements. Now, failure to act could trigger the loss of $75 million in federal highway and safety-related funding. The move comes amid a broader federal crackdown on illegal immigrant truck drivers following several high-profile incidents, including a fatal crash in California involving an unlicensed driver. Now, a federal grand jury in Maryland is investigating how the Justice Department handled its criminal probe into Senator Adam Schiff, according to a law enforcement source, and also a subpoena made public. Now, the said subpoena, sent to conservative activist and congressional candidate Christine Bish, seeks records of her communications with individuals involved in or purporting to be connected to the Schiff investigation. Now, the subpoena directs Bish to turn over any documents or messages from anyone claiming to be William Polt, now the Trump administration's director of the Federal Housing Finance Agency, as well as anyone claiming to work for him, including as his chief of staff. Now, see, the underlying DOJ investigation centers on mortgage fraud allegations against Schiff that have been under review since at least the summer and were recently reported to have stalled. Attorney General Pam Bondi previously tapped Martin, described as a special attorney, to examine the referrals submitted by Polta in May. Schiff has denied wrongdoing in connection with the case. Watch this.
Finance Agency Director Bill Pulte and DOJ pardon attorney Ed Martin. Now, the investigation centers on whether they appointed unauthorized people to help with mortgage fraud investigations of California Democratic Senator Adam Schiff and New York Attorney General Letitia James.
The news will be back after this break.
In a world that's always moving, staying connected to the right resources makes all the difference. Welcome to the Loveworld App Store, the digital home of everything that powers your journey in the Loveworld nation. Here, discovery is simple and meaningful. With our categories section, you can explore a wide range of apps designed to enrich your spirit.
I'm praying especially for you. You that have been sick. You need a miracle.
On the Loveworld App Store, you can access all your favorite apps, such as Healing School app, King's Chat, PCDL, Rhapsody app, Love Tunes, ESPYs, Loveworld Worship, Herald app, Alpha TV, King's View, C-Flix, Hello Loveworld, PCDL for Kids, King's Conference, and so much more. Each application is created to serve a unique purpose and bring you closer to a life of impact. Explore My App feature, where your most valued tools are gathered in one convenient place. It's your personalized hub, ready whenever you are. The Loveworld App Store is more than a collection of apps. It's a vibrant ecosystem built to inspire faith, foster connection, and equip you for impact. Visit www.lwappstore.com to download the app on your device. Explore a world where purpose meets technology. Loveworld App Store. All your world in one place.
Welcome back. Two large new studies are drawing fresh attention to potential health risks linked to COVID-19 vaccination. Now, a Korean study published in the International Journal of Infectious Diseases found that while influenza-like illness dropped sharply early in the pandemic, upper respiratory infections and common colds surged in 2023 and 2024. Now, researchers reported that people who received 4 or more doses of the COVID-19 vaccine were less likely to develop flu-like illness and whooping cough, but were more likely to experience common colds and other mild respiratory infections. Now, the study's authors said the mixed results likely reflect a combination of factors, including changes in immunity, behavior, and healthcare use in the post-pandemic period. Outside experts noted that heavily vaccinated groups in the study tended to be older and in poorer health, which could make them more likely to seek medical care and be diagnosed with common respiratory illnesses regardless of vaccination status. Now, a separate study published in the International Journal of Medical Sciences found that COVID-19 vaccination was associated with a higher risk of acute kidney injury and dialysis within 1 year. Within 12 months, more vaccinated people developed acute kidney injury and require dialysis than those who were unvaccinated. Now, over here in the United States, Labor Secretary Lori Chavez de Romer has praised the latest U.S. jobs report, saying the Trump administration's policies are delivering for native-born workers, even as the government grappled with a shutdown. Labor Department data showing the economy added 119,000 jobs in September, including 97,000 positions in the private sector. Chavez de Romer said nearly 2 million jobs have gone to native-born Americans since President Donald Trump took office, arguing that tighter border controls and stepped-up deportations are helping U.S. citizens gain a stronger foothold in the labor market. She said the administration's goal has been to pair a more secure border with policies that encourage hiring and skills development at home. Now, asked whether lower immigration and increased enforcement could shrink the future workforce, Chavez de Romer maintained that the current numbers point to a solid environment for American workers. She said her focus is on expanding the skilled workforce so that more citizens can step into open roles across the country. Chavez de Romer also tied the jobs data to broader efforts to keep the border secure, saying the administration has delivered on its promise to tighten enforcement while still supporting growth in the home private sector. Let's have a look.
In economic news, the September jobs report showed the American economy remains strong, with 119,000 new jobs added, more than double expectations. These gains came after the summer passage of President Trump's historic tax cuts and multiple big trade deals with countries around the world. In particular, construction jobs surged by 19,000 in September, the largest monthly gain in a year. Nearly all of this solid monthly job growth came from the private sector and went to Americans rather than foreign-born workers, the opposite of what we saw under the previous administration. Inflation also remains under control, and wages are up by 3.8% over the year for American workers because of President Trump's pro-growth policies. In fact, real wages are on pace to increase roughly $1,200 for the average worker this year under President Trump. This is a complete reversal of the failed Biden era when we saw inflation skyrocket to 9%, causing private sector workers to see their wages decline by approximately $3,000. We know that Americans are still hurting from the 4-decade high inflation caused by Joe Biden and the Democrats. But President Trump is making significant progress to fix this, and he will not stop working until he solves it. As the president recently stated, he is never satisfied.
In other news, we've had access to the minutes from the recent Federal Reserve's October meeting that show policymakers were divided over whether to approve another interest rate cut at their next gathering in mid-December, casting doubts on expectations for further easing this year. Now, officials on the Federal Open Market Committee debated how to balance signs of a softening labor market against persistent inflation pressures. And the minutes also noted that participants held strongly differing views on the appropriate policy path. Now, the Fed has already cut its benchmark federal funds rate twice in 2025 by 25 basis points in both September and October, bringing the target rate down from 3.75% to 4%. Also, according to the minutes, most participants still expect additional downward adjustments to rates over time as the Fed moves toward a more neutral stance, but many did not see another reduction in December as necessary. Now, several officials indicated a further cut could well be appropriate if the economy evolves as expected in the coming weeks, while others argued that holding the target range steady for the rest of the year would be more prudent. The divergence leaves the December decision tightly data dependent. Policymakers also discussed the impact of higher tariffs under the Trump administration on inflation, noting that import-reliant businesses are facing increased costs that may be passed on to consumers heavily through higher prices. Have a look.
Open Market Committee, FOMC, voted 10-2 to cut the federal funds rate by 25 basis points, bringing the target range to 3.75 to 4%. However, the minutes released today reveal that the decision was far from unanimous. Many participants warned that while inflation has been above the Fed's 2% goal for 4.5 years, progress is stalling, and they feared that further cuts might signal a loss of commitment to that target. Most policymakers also voiced concern that cutting rates too could risk inflation becoming entrenched. At the same time, others were more focused on possible job market weakness, creating a rare three-way split within the Fed. Some saw a December cut as likely, some saw cuts as appropriate, but not necessarily in December. Many participants had already ruled out a December cut, meaning a minority supports immediate further easing. To complicate matters, the job data and inflation reports that normally inform Fed decisions are delayed due to the recent shutdown. The Bureau of Labor Statistics announced that employment reports for October and November will not arrive before the Fed's December meeting on December 9th and 10th. As a result, market expectations for a December rate cut have plummeted. Traders assign roughly a 25 to 30% chance of a cut in December. Following the release of the minutes, U.S. stocks and gold paired gains while Treasury yields edged higher. For markets, the longer inflation stays above target and the less data the Fed has had to work with, the greater the uncertainty. And that can spook equities and bonds. For borrowers, businesses and consumers, if the Fed holds off on further cuts, borrowing costs remain higher for longer.
We'll be back with more news after this break. Stay with us.
It's easy to set up, quick to start, and packed with value. Smarter streaming starts here with the Alpha TV Stick. Just plug and stream anytime, anywhere. Discover a curated lineup of content designed to inspire, live broadcasts and global events, inspirational films and series, children's programming, healing and teaching sessions, all on demand.
With millions of downloads worldwide, the Alpha TV app is transforming lives across the globe. And now, we're on a mission to reach 1 billion downloads of the Alpha TV app, and you can be part of it. Join the global wave with 1 billion Alpha TV app downloads worldwide. Bring the higher life into every home. Order your Alpha TV stick today and experience smarter streaming. Alpha, the higher life is here.
Some comforting news on the international front. U.S. and Russian officials are working from a draft framework to end the war in Ukraine that may require major concessions from Kiev, including territorial losses. Now, the plan, developed over the past month by U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, is based on input from both Ukrainian and Russian interlocutors and would include a halt to Russian attacks as part of a broader ceasefire agreement. President Donald Trump has been briefed on the outlines of the proposal and supports continued efforts to reach a deal. Now, under the draft terms, Ukraine would cede territory to Russia and agree to forego certain types of weaponry, while the United States will scale back some military assistance to Kiev. Russia, in turn, would gain full control of the eastern Donbass region, a long-standing objective frequently cited by President Vladimir Putin as a central goal of the invasion. U.S. officials have emphasized that any final agreement would require concessions from both sides, and that the framework remains subject to change. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has consistently rejected any settlement that involves surrendering Ukrainian territory to Russia. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the administration will continue to develop a list of potential ideas for ending the conflict, stressing in a post on X that a durable peace will demand serious and realistic compromises from both Moscow and Kiev. The White House has framed the effort as an attempt to stop the killing and create a durable, lasting peace after years of costly fighting. The Kremlin, however, has publicly downplayed the notion of active peace talks with Washington. Watch this.
The Trump administration has signaled to President Volodymyr Zelensky that Ukraine must give up land and surrender some weapons as part of a U.S.-drafted framework to end the war with Russia. That's according to two people familiar with the matter who requested not to be identified because of the sensitivity of the talks. The sources also said the proposals included cutting the size of Ukraine's armed forces, among other things. They added that the U.S. wants Ukraine to accept the main points of the framework. Such a plan would represent a major setback for Ukraine, as it faces further Russian territorial gains in the eastern part of the country, and with Zelensky tackling a corruption scandal in which Parliament dismissed the energy and justice ministers on Wednesday. A senior Ukrainian official earlier told Reuters that Kyiv had received signals about a set of U.S. proposals to end the war, and that Washington had discussed them with Russia. The source said Ukraine has had no role in preparing the proposals. Zelensky, who was holding talks in Turkey on Wednesday with President Tayyip Erdogan, is due to meet U.S. Army officials in Kyiv on Thursday.
The COP30 UN Climate Summit in Belém, Brazil, has abruptly evacuated after a fire broke out inside a conference venue, forcing negotiators and attendees alike to flee during the final hours of high-stakes talks. Flames and thick smoke were seen in the pavilion area of the former aerodrome site as UN security ordered people out and Brazilian emergency services moved in. The UN later said the blaze had been contained with limited damage, but access to the venue was temporarily handed over to Brazilian authorities while fire crews checked the building's safety. Witnesses on ground reported a chaotic scene as the fire spread up the walls and into the ceiling of one of the country's pavilions. Now, video from the venue showed flames burning through the sheeting of the roof and at least one person attempting to fight the blaze with a fire extinguisher before retreating. Medical teams treated dozens of people mainly for smoke inhalation and related breathing problems. First responders were also seen using oxygen masks as exposure to toxic fumes, while at least one woman was taken away in a wheelchair. Authorities said there were no immediate reports of burn injuries and no indication the structure was at risk of sinking or collapse. But large areas of the site remained off-limits as inspections continued. Now, the disruption halted formal negotiations and is expected to delay efforts to finalize an agreement among nearly 200 countries on next steps to tackle climate change. Just before we end the news tonight, let's have a quick look at tomorrow's weather forecast. And to end the news tonight, a quick recap of the top headlines. Night of Bliss set to light up 10 locations in one unforgettable Friday. Judge rules Trump's D.C. National Guard deployment unconstitutional. Orders drawdown after appeal window. Trump administration warns Pennsylvania of $75 million funding cut over terror suspect trucker CDL. Federal grand jury examines handling of DOJ's criminal investigation into Senator Adam Schiff. And the COVID vaccine studies prompt new questions about possible health risks. And that's all the news we have for you tonight. Join us at the same time tomorrow for more news. I am Joel Richard signing off. God bless you, God bless our armed forces, and God bless these United States of America.